They didn't realize that picking a fight with you was like punching a flame. Now they're burning in a fire they started with their own hands. They thought they were slick, thought they could mark you as the villain and walk away untouched. They moved in shadows, threw stones, built lies, and clapped for your pain like it was entertainment. But now those same hands are catching heat. The same lies they spread are wrapping around their life like a noose. And they know they made the biggest mistake of their life by coming for you. Before we go any further, like this video, subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments if you know this message is your confirmation. When you interact with this video, you're helping push this message deeper into the algorithm, so more chosen ones, more spiritual warriors can find this and remember who they are. You're not just watching, you're activating. Now, let's get into it, because this isn't just a message, it's a reckoning. Chosen one making an enemy out of you will go down in history as their biggest mistake. You weren't the soft target they thought you were. You weren't fragile. You weren't forgettable. You were the test, and they failed. The universe gave them a chance to either respect your presence or suffer from their own ego. And they chose wrong, horribly wrong, because you were never just somebody. You were chosen, and that comes with protection they couldn't see until it was too late. Let's stop pretending like you don't know what I'm talking about. Let's stop acting like you haven't felt this shift. They're cracking. They're spiraling. The same people who laughed when you cried, their peace is now being ripped away piece by piece. The ones who plotted in silence are now the ones waking up with anxiety, paranoia, and unexplained chaos chasing them everywhere. That's not coincidence, that's correction. The universe doesn't forget. And you, chosen one, let's talk. Because while they underestimated you, you did too. You doubted your power. You questioned your value. You wondered if maybe it was all in your head. You kept trying to make peace with people who declared silent war on you. You made excuses for the spiritual attacks, emotional sabotage, and energetic envy. You told yourself, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's just life. But deep down, you knew. You felt it in your bones, that pull, that pressure, that cosmic tension. And yet, you still asked, why me? Let me answer that for you, because you're not regular, because your light is too loud for people living in darkness, because your path was built in fire, and not everyone can survive the heat. They came for you thinking you were standing alone. But what they couldn't see was the force of the universe lining up behind you, protecting you like a vault. Every time they tried to push you off course, the universe adjusted your elevation. You were being shielded in ways they'll never understand. Now that energy is circling back, it haunts them. Your resilience haunts them. Your glow haunts them. Your ability to rise from rubble while they crumble from whispers destroys them. They thought they could break you and go live their best life, but instead they triggered their own breakdown, and they know it. That's why they're quiet now. That's why the ones who were loud with lies have gone silent with regret. Chosen one, how long will you keep forgetting who you are? How long will you keep doubting a power that even your enemies feared before you recognized it? They saw your glow before you did. That's why they tried to kill it. That's why they made you the target. Not because you were weak, but because they knew if you ever figured out who you truly are, they'd never be able to stand in your presence again. So, no, you're not imagining it. No, you're not being dramatic. And no, you're not overreacting. What's happening now? That's divine backlash. That's karma on autopilot. That's the universe defending what it always protected. You. So, before we go any further, if you know they made the biggest mistake by turning you into their enemy, drop 77 in the comments right now. That's not just a number. That's your signal to the universe that you've stepped into your power and you're no longer apologizing for the storm you bring. Like this video and subscribe, not just for you, but to make sure more chosen ones find this message. Every like pushes this truth further. Every share breaks another illusion. Let the world see what happens when the underestimated rise. Now let's dive into it, step by step, layer by layer, and believe me, if you're truly chosen, if they really did come for you thinking you'd fold, you're going to feel this message in your chest. This isn't just a story. It's the truth they hoped you'd never speak out loud. Number 1. They didn't make an enemy, they built a monument to their own failure. They didn't make an enemy. They built a monument to their own downfall, and now they have to walk past it every day, haunted by the truth that it was their own hands that carved it. They thought you were an easy target, a soft voice they could silence, a quiet spirit they could crush. But instead of ending you, they ignited something they couldn't control. Now they're learning the most painful truth of all. You weren't just a person. You were a shift in energy they never should have touched. They didn't just start drama. They initiated karma, because this wasn't a petty misunderstanding. This was intentional. They plotted, they poked, they manipulated, they played with your name like it was a game. Now their whole life is glitching like the lies they told. They're looking around, wondering why everything's falling apart, why doors are closing, why nothing is working, why the same energy they used to laugh at you has become the pressure sitting on their chest every single day. It's not punishment, it's return. And chosen one, don't act like you didn't feel it. You did. That internal fire that lit up every time they tried to dim you, that gut instinct that told you they were faking, even when they smiled in your face. That heaviness in your chest that whispered, "You're not crazy, you're being attacked." You weren't imagining it, you were sensing it, because your soul always knew. The universe was watching, and the scales would balance, not by your hands, but through energy. They turned you into the villain in their story to protect the lie they were living. They needed you to be the problem, so they didn't have to face the truth. But here's what they didn't account for. Truth doesn't need defending. It defends itself. Now the story is flipping. The same mouths that ran wild with gossip are silent. The same people who laughed at your pain are facing their own, 10 times worse, and they can't stop it. They can't post it away. They can't pretend it away. This isn't a social storm. This is an energetic collapse. It has your name written in the cause and theirs in the consequence. You were never just a random person they crossed. You were a soul on assignment. And when someone tries to sabotage what the universe is using, they don't win. They crash. When you go after a soul in alignment, don't be shocked when the ground beneath your plan gives way. The universe protects its investments. They set a trap like they were confident, but setting a trap in the middle of an earthquake only guarantees one thing: you both fall. But only one of you was built to rise from rubble, and it sure wasn't them. You know why they hate you so much? Because even after everything they threw, you're still here. Not just surviving, but transforming. Every insult became your fuel. Every betrayal sharpened your clarity. Every delay trained your endurance. They created a version of you even you didn't see coming. Now they're mad that the storm didn't break you, it built you. Number 2, you were their obsession. Now you're their collapse. You were their obsession, and now you're their collapse. They couldn't stop watching you, couldn't stop talking about you, couldn't stop thinking about you while pretending you didn't matter. They were studying you like a blueprint, smiling in public but seething in silence. They were addicted to your energy, even when they hated it, especially when they hated it. Because deep down, your light reminded them of everything they weren't, and that truth shredded their ego. While you were healing, they were scheming. While you were rebuilding yourself from scratch, they were busy gathering more fuel for the fire they hoped would consume you. But here's what they never understood. Your fire doesn't destroy you. It forges you. Every insult made you sharper. Every betrayal made you wiser. Every delay made you stronger. They thought they were watching your end, but they were witnessing your evolution. And now, that obsession they fed every day has become the very noose tightening around their fake peace. They gave your name more attention than their own goals. They built entire conversations, entire alliances, entire movements around you. They woke up thinking about how to twist your words and stayed up late trying to decode your moves. Meanwhile, everything they said they wanted, their dreams, their growth, their relationships, turned to dust. Why? Because you can't chase purpose and poison at the same time. And they chose poison. They thought slandering you would fill the void inside them, but it only made it grow. You ever wonder why they seem so pressed by your existence, so bothered by your progress, so obsessed with your energy? Because you had the courage to do what they couldn't. You faced your pain. You turned your wounds into wisdom. You built yourself in silence, and when you started to shine, they couldn't stand it. Your light exposed the cracks in their illusion. You weren't even trying to flex. You were just being. Still, your presence made them panic. Now look at them, exhausted, bitter, confused, watching you move forward while their own life feels like it's in reverse, watching your doors open while theirs are slamming shut. They put so much energy into watching your life, they forgot to live their own. They tried to copy your flow without understanding your foundation. They envied your healing without having the discipline to face their own trauma. Now they're stuck, not because you did anything to them, but because the universe always corrects energy. You didn't have to clap back. You didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to stoop down and fight dirty. You just kept moving, and that movement is destroying them. Their entire identity was built around your failure, and now that you're thriving, they're crumbling because they don't know who they are without your name in their mouth. That's not karma, that's self-inflicted collapse. And let's address something real. Yes, you doubted yourself. Yes, you questioned your power. Yes, you wondered if you were the problem. When your name keeps getting twisted and passed around like gossip currency, it's easy to second-guess your light. It's easy to internalize their projections. But they weren't attacking you because you were wrong. They attacked you because you were real. Every time you elevated, they grew quieter, not because they were done, but because they were watching. Every time you succeeded, they felt it like a punch in the gut, not because you took anything from them, but because your progress made their stagnation louder. This is the part they never saw coming. They thought they could feed on your downfall forever, but you were never alone. The universe was standing with you, protecting you, preserving you, powering you. Now that same energy is folding back on them. The envy they threw out is swirling in their own homes now. The doubt they cast over your name is infecting their own reflection. They mocked your healing journey. Now they're choking on their own unhealed wounds. They called you crazy. Now they can't think straight. They said you were too sensitive. Now they're falling apart at the slightest pressure. That's not karma in the distance. That's karma right on time. So, chosen one, stop asking if you imagined it. You didn't. Stop wondering if they're still watching. They are. Stop doubting whether your growth has power. It does, because it's destroying the lies they built their identity on. You were never their enemy. You were their trigger. You reminded them of everything they had the chance to become, but were too scared to pursue. And now that you've become it anyway, without their approval, without their support, and without their permission, you've become the very collapse they can't outrun. You were their obsession, and now you're their consequence. The fall has only just begun. Number 3. They called you crazy. Now they can't sleep without checking if you've moved on. They called you crazy, but now they can't sleep without checking if you've moved on. They laughed when you cried. They labeled you unstable when you finally stood up for yourself. They twisted your reactions to their abuse into evidence for their lies. They told anyone who would listen that you were the problem, all while hiding the fact that they had been pulling the strings the entire time. They poked, they pushed, they gaslit, and the moment you flinched, they screamed, "See, I told you they were unhinged." They didn't just lie about you, they curated a version of you that fit their story. They didn't care about truth, they cared about image. Your pain became their proof. They took the deepest wounds you carried and used them like props in a performance designed to make them the victim and you the villain. But that show is over. The stage has collapsed, and now the only audience left is the one inside their head, and even that is turning on them. You were never crazy. You were reacting to madness. You were responding to manipulation. You were drowning in gaslight and still trying to breathe with grace. You were handed chaos and still trying to hold peace. And now that you've gone quiet, they're panicking. The silence they used to mock is now a mirror they can't escape. They can't scroll without checking for you. They can't post without wondering how you might interpret it. They can't sleep without wondering if you've moved on, or worse, if you've leveled up beyond their reach. They used to believe they had control. Now they realize they never did, because the one thing they feared most has happened. You stopped explaining yourself. They needed your reactions. That's how they kept their narrative alive. They needed you to scream, to cry, to fight so they could clip your emotions out of context and parade them as proof. But you starved them. You cut off their supply. You learned the most powerful lesson of all. Silence is louder than any lie, and now that silence is echoing through their mind like thunder in a cave, while you're out here healing, rising, evolving, they're stuck replaying scenes that no longer have your participation. They don't know who to lie to anymore. The people they convinced are starting to wake up. The mask is slipping, and they know it. Because even their own reflection doesn't buy the script anymore. Lies need maintenance. They need performance, attention, upkeep, and eventually even the liar forgets what's real. That's where they are now. Losing track of what they made up, tripping over timelines, backpedaling on their own fabrications. Their story is glitching because it wasn't built on truth. And truth, no matter how buried, always rises, just like you did. There was a time you questioned yourself. They pushed you so hard, so skillfully, that you actually started to believe maybe you were the one in the wrong. Maybe you overreacted. Maybe you were broken. You begged for clarity, pleaded for peace. You walked on eggshells in your own spirit, and they smiled while you crumbled, proud of the control they thought they had. But the universe saw everything. It never needed your proof. It needed your patience. And now it's returning every tear, every insult, every manipulation, not to you, but to them. That sleeplessness, that anxiety, that fear every time they hear your name. That's not guilt. That's exposure. They're being shown what they did, not through your words, but through their own unraveling. They called you crazy. Now they can't keep their mind still. They said you were obsessed. Now they can't stop stalking your peace. They told everyone you were bitter. Now they're the ones stuck in the past. They said you were unstable. Now they're collapsing over the very lies they built. And the worst part, they know you see it, you feel it, you know, and that knowing eats them alive. Chosen one, stop second-guessing your sanity. Stop revisiting old pain to see if maybe they were right. They weren't. They never were. What you felt was real. What you lived through was real. What they did was calculated. You're not crazy for responding to calculated harm with emotion. You weren't unstable. You were human. You were vulnerable in a world that punishes depth. You were real in a sea of performative faces. And that scared them, because people who live behind masks will always be terrified of those who don't need one. So no, you're not crazy. You're clear. You're grounded. You're done explaining pain to people who turned it into entertainment. Now that you've reclaimed your silence, your distance, your power, they're left with the only thing they truly deserve, the consequences of their own creation. This isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. The one who once laughed at your breakdown is now losing sleep over your breakthrough. Let them toss. Let them scroll. Let them wonder. You've moved on, and that silence is the loudest truth they've ever heard. Number 4. The same people who betrayed you are now begging for a glimpse of your energy. It's funny, isn't it? The same ones who ghosted you when you needed them, who smirked while you broke, who whispered your name like venom behind your back, are now watching you glow from a distance, praying for even a flicker of your attention. Once upon a time, you would have dropped everything to make them feel seen. Now, their messages sit on read, and that silence is poetic justice. They thought walking away from you would make you crawl. They thought replacing you would be easy. They thought you were disposable until they realized your presence was the source of their stability. Now they're surrounded by people who look alive but feel empty. They traded your loyalty for validation, and it's hitting them that validation doesn't hug back. The energy they mocked is now the same energy they crave just to function. What they didn't understand back then is that your energy wasn't regular. You didn't just enter their life, you shifted it. You brought alignment, peace, clarity. You reflected their potential back to them. And that scared them. Because loving you required honesty. And honesty burns people who are made of lies. So instead of facing themselves, they blamed you. They ran. They talked. They tried to bury your name, but now they can't bury the guilt. You want to know what karma really looks like? It's not some dramatic lightning bolt from the sky. It's waking up every day, realizing you lost access to something pure. It's scrolling through your life and seeing what peace looks like when it's no longer yours. It's watching you rise in silence while they're stuck explaining to everyone why they can't seem to get it together anymore. Now they hover around your energy like moths circling the flame they once mocked. They can't reach you, not because you're being cruel, but because the universe leveled your vibration beyond their frequency. You've evolved out of their reach. They're still trying to play checkers while you're moving like chess. You became unpredictable, untouchable, unbothered, and that terrifies them more than your rage ever did. They thought they'd moved on to something better, but now they're realizing they downgraded from a soul connection to background noise. You were never just somebody. You were the mirror that showed them who they could be. And when they broke that mirror, they shattered their own reflection. Now they're in rooms filled with attention, but starving for connection, surrounded by people who smile but don't care, laugh but don't listen. Every fake friend they chose over you is teaching them the lesson you tried to explain. Loyalty isn't loud. Energy doesn't lie. So let them scroll, let them watch, let them replay your story from the outside while pretending they don't care. That's their new reality, being spectators in a life they were once invited to build. They're haunted, not by what you did, but by what they destroyed. You were the blessing disguised as a person. They confused peace with boredom, love with control, loyalty with weakness. And now they understand what losing a real one actually feels like, not dramatic, just permanent. Number 5. They tried to break you, but you became the blueprint. They tried to break you, but instead they built the blueprint for your greatness. Every insult became part of your design. Every rejection, every smear campaign, every betrayal, it all became data for your reconstruction. They thought they were destroying you, but they were handing you the schematics to build a version of yourself that couldn't be destroyed again. They underestimated the resilience of someone who has nothing left to lose. You stopped fighting for approval, and that's when everything changed. You realized your peace was more powerful than their chaos. You learned that indifference is the ultimate revenge. They wanted you emotional, reactive, unhinged, but you mastered stillness. You started moving with strategy, not sensitivity. Now they're confused. You used to explain yourself. You used to chase closure. You used to plead for understanding. Now you just smile. And that silence burns more than any argument ever could. They can feel the shift. They know they don't have access to your spirit anymore. You outgrew their manipulation like a snake shedding dead skin. You stopped trying to prove your worth, and in doing so, you exposed how worthless their games were. You became the thing they never expected, proof that pain doesn't always produce victims. Sometimes it creates visionaries. You stopped being reactive and started being refined. You stopped surviving and started strategizing. Every setback became scaffolding for your comeback. And let's be honest, that's what really eats them alive. You weren't supposed to make it. You weren't supposed to rebuild. You weren't supposed to smile again, love again, thrive again. But you did, quietly, relentlessly. You did it while they were busy performing happiness for strangers online. Now you're the template. The same people who laughed at your struggle are taking notes from your glow-up. They're mimicking your moves, stealing your phrases, copying your piece, and still not getting it right. Because your energy wasn't learned, it was earned. It came from the trenches of pain, from the nights you cried yourself into clarity. They don't understand that what makes you powerful isn't what you have, it's what you've endured. You were tempered in rejection, refined in isolation, and reborn in silence. That's why your presence hits different now. You don't need validation, you are validation. They'll try to convince people you changed. And they're right, you did. You changed from someone who tolerated disrespect into someone who demands peace, from someone who begged to be seen into someone who doesn't care who's watching, from someone who tried to prove their worth into someone who embodies it effortlessly. They broke you, thinking that would end your story. Instead, it started your legend. And now, every version of you that rises is a reminder to them that you don't destroy chosen ones, you just trigger their transformation. Number 6. Their biggest regret was thinking you needed them. Their biggest regret wasn't losing you, it was realizing you never actually needed them. They built their confidence on your loyalty. They felt powerful because you cared. They fed on your empathy like it was oxygen, mistaking your patience for dependency. They thought you couldn't function without them, that you'd collapse the second they withdrew their attention. But the moment you walked away and didn't look back, their illusion shattered. You were never the weak one. You were the anchor. You were the energy source that kept everything in their life from falling apart. You were the reason they felt important, seen, desired. And when you pulled your energy back, it exposed the emptiness they were hiding behind arrogance. Suddenly, the spotlight they thought was on them vanished, because it was always yours to begin with. They used to think your love was a privilege they could toy with. They didn't realize your love was the ecosystem that made their world function. You made them feel relevant. You gave their chaos purpose. You gave their ego someone to impress. And when you stopped participating, they had to face the truth. They were nothing without an audience. You were never addicted to them. They were addicted to your presence. That's why they keep orbiting your energy like lost satellites, trying to find a signal. That's why they keep posting things they hope you'll see. That's why they keep bringing up your name even when they swear they've moved on. It's all noise to fill the void you left. They can't stand the idea that you're thriving without them. They can't handle seeing you laugh again, sleep peacefully, glow naturally. Because to them, your healing is an insult. Your silence is disrespect. Your peace is proof that everything they told themselves about being better off without you was a lie. Here's the cruel truth. They thought they broke you, but they only exposed how self-sufficient you really are. You rebuilt your peace without their apology. You found joy without their validation. You rose without their help. You became the version of yourself they secretly feared you'd become, the one that doesn't need anyone to feel complete. Now they're trapped in a paradox. They can't stand you, but they can't stop checking for you. They're jealous of your detachment, haunted by your silence, and confused by your glow. They wanted to watch you chase them forever. Instead, they're watching you ascend into a version of life that doesn't include them at all. And that's what hurts most. You stopped trying to prove anything. You stopped trying to be understood. You stopped begging to be chosen. You realized you already were. The moment you accepted that, the entire dynamic flipped. Now, they're chasing closure while you're chasing peace. They're trying to replace your energy, and every attempt ends in failure, because what you brought wasn't replaceable. It was rare, the kind of energy that doesn't compete, doesn't perform, doesn't pretend, the kind of love that leaves a void when it walks away. They told everyone you needed them. Now they're explaining to everyone why they can't stop thinking about you. They mocked your healing. Now they're the ones breaking down. They bragged about moving on. Now they're stuck replaying memories they can't delete. That's not coincidence. That's consequence. So don't waste time wondering if they regret it. They do, every single day, because they didn't just lose a person. They lost access to the version of themselves they only felt safe being when you were around. You were never the one in need. You were the one holding everything together, and when you left, their whole world reminded them who the real foundation was. Number 7. You didn't just survive. You became the lesson. Let's get one thing straight. You didn't survive what they did. You transcended it. You didn't crawl out of the fire. You walked through it, built an empire in the ashes, and came out with your crown polished by the flames. They thought they were teaching you a lesson by abandoning you, by mocking you, by trying to replace you. But the lesson wasn't for you. It was for them. You were the teacher the whole time. They thought breaking you would humble you. Instead, it humbled them. They thought taking their energy away would stop your growth. Instead, it forced you to find your own power source. They thought ending things on their terms meant they had control. Instead, the ending became your awakening. You didn't just heal, you evolved. You stopped chasing apologies and started chasing alignment. You stopped replaying the past and started redesigning your future. You stopped trying to make people understand your pain and decided to let your peace speak louder than any explanation. That's not survival, that's mastery. And now, you've become the walking embodiment of karma. Your existence is the full circle moment they can't escape. Every good thing that happens to you echoes in their mind as proof that they were wrong. Every new win you post, every moment you smile, every day you breathe in peace, it reminds them they underestimated the wrong one. You are the evidence that divine timing is real. That energy always returns. That pain can't stop purpose. You are the reminder that when the universe is protecting someone, no betrayal can destroy them. It only redirects them. They thought you'd fade. You flourished. They thought you'd break. You built. They thought they'd forget you. Now they can't go a day without feeling your energy haunting every silent corner of their guilt. That's the power of a chosen one. You don't just survive the betrayal, you become the proof that betraying you was the downfall. They wanted to make a villain out of you, but history's writing you as the blueprint. So let them watch, let them regret, let them live in the shadow of what they lost. Because you didn't just walk away, you became the storm that taught them to never underestimate light again. You are the closure, you are the justice, you are the karmic mirror they'll never escape. And from this point forward, the universe will keep reminding them, you were never the problem, you were the prophecy. Number 8. The universe watched it all, and it's balancing the scales. You didn't have to lift a finger, you didn't have to plot, expose, or retaliate, because the universe was watching, taking notes, and waiting for the perfect time to return the energy they threw your way. Every tear, every lie, every betrayal, all of it was logged, and now the scales are finally tipping. What's happening to them isn't bad luck. It's accountability. It's divine order correcting an imbalance they thought they got away with. For a while, it looked like they were winning. They were laughing while you were breaking. They were celebrating while you were rebuilding. They were stacking lies like trophies, proud of how easily they fooled the crowd. But that's the thing about illusion. It doesn't last. When the truth shows up, it doesn't knock, it kicks the door in. The same mouths that gossiped about you are now being talked about. The same people who mocked your faith are now praying for peace. The same energy they used to attack you is now suffocating them. You can see it in their faces. The confusion, the stress, the sudden paranoia. That's not random. That's energy being returned to sender. And while they're unraveling, you're glowing in a way that can't be faked. Your peace became your armor. Your silence became your revenge. You're living proof that when you let the universe handle your enemies, it doesn't just protect you, it elevates you. The irony? They called you dramatic. They told everyone you were overreacting. Now they're living in the same chaos they accused you of causing. They thought they could throw darkness at you and stay untouched. But when you throw poison at light, the only thing that gets contaminated is your own soul. You didn't have to wish for revenge. You became the proof that balance exists. Every time you chose peace instead of retaliation, the universe multiplied your blessings. Every time you kept quiet instead of clapping back, the energy you saved turned into momentum. That's why you're rising so fast now, because you didn't waste your spirit trying to fix people who were never going to apologize. Now the universe is humbling them one coincidence at a time. They're losing things they bragged about. They're facing the same rejection they dished out. They're being ignored by the very people they once used to make you jealous. And the worst part? They know it's connected to how they treated you. They can feel it. This isn't just karma, it's education. It's the universe teaching them that when you touch a chosen one, you touch divine order. And divine order doesn't miss. It might move slow, but it never forgets. So don't look back. Don't pity them. They need this lesson more than they ever needed your forgiveness. You were the test, and they failed it miserably. Now the universe is grading their behavior in public. And the report card reads, "You messed with the wrong soul." Stay still. Stay quiet. Keep glowing. The light doesn't chase, it attracts. You've become the living proof that peace always wins in the end. Number 9. Their ego is breaking under the weight of your glow-up. Let's be honest, your glow-up wasn't just a comeback. It was a broadcasted miracle. You didn't just rise, you redefined what rising looks like, and the people who used to call you too much now whisper that you've changed. Of course you did. You had to. You were never meant to stay in the mud with people who built their self-worth on dragging others down. Now they're choking on the sight of your evolution. Your peace triggers them. Your smile irritates their spirit. The life they said you'd never have is now the exact one they can't stop watching. They scroll through your wins, pretending they're unbothered, but their jealousy is showing in the way they copy your every move. They thought you'd beg. Instead, you built. They thought you'd disappear. Instead, you reappeared louder, wiser, untouchable. You didn't need to announce your healing. Your aura did that for you. Your presence walks into rooms now and demands respect without saying a word. That's the kind of power you can't fake. It's the power that comes from surviving what was designed to destroy you. They told everyone they were the reason you were struggling. Now everyone sees you thriving, and the story isn't adding up. Their ego is suffocating under the pressure of your success. Every lie they told is collapsing under the weight of your reality. You became the contradiction to their narrative, and that's a punishment worse than silence. Because what can they say now? That you're lucky, that you changed, that it was just a phase. Please, you didn't stumble into peace. You fought for it. You clawed your way through confusion, rejection, and pain. And now you wear confidence like armor. You don't need validation. You are the evidence. They're realizing too late that the crazy one turned out to be the calmest. The unstable one turned out to be the most grounded. The emotional one turned out to be the most self-aware. Every insult aged poorly. Every lie aged worse. And that's why they avoid you now. Not because they hate you, because they can't face the proof. You're walking around as living evidence that they were wrong about everything. Their ego can't take it. So they pretend not to care, but you can feel it. The tension, the envy, the regret radiating from their silence. You were never the one who lost. You were the one who learned. You turned pain into presence. And now your glow isn't just revenge, it's revelation. You are what happens when a chosen one stops apologizing for existing. You are the final exam for every person who ever underestimated your worth. Let them squirm. Let them pretend they're unbothered. Because behind every fake laugh, every subtle post, every forced smile, their ego is screaming, and the sound of that collapse, that's justice. Number 10. You were never the victim. You were the catalyst. They told the story like you were the one who got destroyed. But truthfully, you were the catalyst that exposed everything fragile, fake, and rotten in them. You were the pressure that cracked their mask. You were the mirror that revealed what they'd been running from their entire life. You weren't the end of their peace. You were the beginning of their exposure. You walked into their world like light breaking into a dark room, and at first they loved it until they realized that light reveals everything, including the mess they'd been hiding under charm and manipulation. They called you too intense, but what they meant was, you see too much. They called you difficult, but what they meant was, you're not easy to deceive. They called you crazy, but what they meant was, you caught me lying. You were never meant to fit into their narrative. You were meant to end it. They mistook your presence for coincidence, when in reality it was divine timing. You came to shift something. You came to expose something. You came to show them that the masks people wear eventually melt under real light. And that's why they couldn't handle you. They wanted your love, but not your depth. They wanted your energy, but not your truth. They wanted your loyalty, but not your accountability. You were the full version of everything they pretended to be, and that terrified them. You didn't lose them. You released them. You didn't fail. You finished your assignment. You weren't rejected. You were redirected. And now that you're gone, they're finally realizing the difference between attention and energy, between attachment and alignment, between liking someone and being capable of loving them. You're not their villain. You're their wake-up call. The lesson they refused to learn, the reflection they couldn't face, the change they weren't ready for. You didn't destroy their peace. You revealed their dysfunction. And now that you've pulled your light away, they're forced to live in the truth they tried to bury you under. And here's the part that really stings for them. You didn't have to get revenge. You became it. Your peace is the punishment. Your happiness is the haunting. Your success is the silence that keeps reminding them what they lost. Every breath you take in freedom is a reminder that they built their empire on illusion, and you walked away with the truth. So, chosen one, stop carrying the guilt of being unforgettable. Stop apologizing for being the earthquake that exposed weak foundations. You didn't ruin anything. You revealed it. You didn't push them away. Your growth did. And when truth walks in, lies have no choice but to flee. You were never the victim. You were the catalyst, the shift, the divine correction in human form. And no matter how much they rewrite the story, the universe knows the truth. You were sent to wake them up, even if it meant they'd hate you for it. Now the cycle is complete. You're free, they're learning, and balance has been restored. What they thought was their victory was actually their initiation into karma. What you thought was your ending was your beginning. You didn't just survive the story, you outgrew the book entirely.